Hello, I'm Aidan from Simply Music Resources. I'm a third year music tech and popular music performance student, and my main instrument is bass guitar. In today's video, we're going to be looking at notation, dynamics, and articulation. So we'll start with the definitions. Notation is how notes are written down. It covers pitch, rhythm, and how the note should be played. Dynamics are used to indicate how loudly or how quietly a piece of music should be played. And articulation is used to describe the way that music should be played, so the technique that should be used to play the music. We'll look in more detail firstly at notation. So most Western music is written on what we call staves. And simply put, the staves are just these 5 black lines here. All the information needed to play a piece of music is written on these staves. Potentially the most important symbol on the stave is the clef. Now the clef tells you what notes fall on each line and gap and at what pitch these notes are. So the treble clef is this symbol here, and the bass clef is this symbol here. The notes on the treble clef are higher pitched than the notes on the bass clef. There are other clefs, such as tenor or alto, but these clefs are less common and generally tend to be more instrument specific for things such as the alto or tenor saxophone. Now, the notes that fall on these staves have names and they're named after letters. They are A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. So there's 7 of them in total. These notes cover all the pitches as well. So you can have a low A and a high A. And although it's the same note, they're at different pitches. The position of these notes on the stave, whether they're on a line or in a gap, can be remembered using acronyms. So for the treble clef, the lined note acronym is every green bus drives fast. And the gap note acronym is face. It spells face. So if we pick a line at random, so the third line here, every green bus. Bus is the third word, so all the notes that appear on this line are a B because bus starts with B. Similarly, if we choose the fourth gap here, we spell face, F-A-C-E. The fourth letter in face is E, so all the notes in the gap up here are E's. The line notes on the bass clef, the acronym is Great Big Dogs Frighten Albert, and for the gap notes is All Cows Eat Grass. So again, if we choose a random line, this one here, the fourth line, Great Big Dogs Frighten. Frighten is the fourth word. The notes on that line are an F. And for the gap, the second one, all cows. There we go. All the notes in the second gap are C's. If you ever forget the acronyms, in a somewhat useful way to remember what notes fall on the stave is that they will always fall alphabetically. So you only need one note to then work out what all the other notes are on the stave. And the clef itself is just a stylized letter. So the bass clef is a stylized F. And you notice it starts on the line that is an F. The treble clef is a stylized G, and it starts there on the line that is a G. So you can remember that. If you ever forget the acronyms, you can use the clef to work out what notes on the line and then use that to work out alphabetically what the other notes are. Now, in a lot of cases, instruments have the ability to play notes that are higher and lower than the notes that can be written on a stave. When these notes occur, we have to use what are called ledger lines. Now, these lines are used to just highlight what each note is and distinguish them when you go beyond the stave. For example, in the treble clef here, the first note above the stave is an A, and an A has a single line through it. And then on the bass clef, the first note below the stave is the E, which has a ledger line in it again. What's interesting is this note here, so this C with the ledger line through the middle of it, that note is the exact same note on both treble and bass clef. And in piano terms, it's referred to as middle C, because it's almost in the center of the piano. So this note here shows the crossover in pitches from treble to bass. So all the way up to this C, and then it continues up into treble clef. The notes that are written on the staves have names. These names refer to the rhythm or the length of time the note should be held. And again, this is very important when looking at rhythm and tempo. And you'll find more information about this in our rhythm and tempo video. So I'll briefly glance over the names just to recap. The longest note is a semibreve, then it's a minim, then a crotchet, then a quaver, and then a semiquaver. There are other notes beyond these, but these are the most common and the most useful for now. We also have symbols for what are called sharps and flats, and these are easily remembered as the black keys on a piano. So our original 7 notes are the white keys, and then you have sharps and flats, which are 5 extra notes that appear on the piano, and they're in between all the other notes. These sharp and flat symbols can be used in notation to tell the musician what key a piece of music is in. So this symbol here is a sharp symbol. It looks a bit like a hash symbol. And again, using our acronyms, so every green bus drives fast, that's the 5th line, so that's an F sharp. And with that F sharp, it tells us that the music is in the key of G major. And then again, this little B here is the flat symbol. And using our acronym, every green bus tells us that that is a B flat and that the music is in the key of F major. Now you can work out how many sharps and flats are in each key using the circle of fifths, which is this picture here. The key C is easily remembered as, again, it's middle C and it has no sharps or flats. So you have none of these symbols on the stave. And if you go using the circle to the left of the C, so F has 1 flat, and then B has 2, and then E has 3, and so on and so on. And then the other way, you go G, which has 1 sharp, and then D, which has 2, and then A, which has 3, and so on and so on. And this then can be used to determine what key a piece of music is in. Like everything in notation, after a long period of time, most musicians will memorize this, won't need to refer to acronyms or images to remember. However, this takes time. It's like learning another language. Now we'll move on to dynamics and articulation. So there is a variety of terms used to describe the dynamics of a piece of music. These terms are written in Italian, as this is where the notation that we use was developed. So for them, they just described it on the piece of paper. However, for non-Italian speaking musicians, you have to memorize Italian terms. And these terms appear at specific points on the stave to tell you how each section should be played. And because music often changes, it requires different terms at different parts in the piece. So if the beginning of the song is very quiet, you will see this symbol here, which stands for piano and is soft. It means play it softly. And then if it then builds up and becomes really loud in another section, you'll see this F here, which stands for forte, and it means loud. Now, as music changes, certain sections can gradually get louder or gradually get softer. And these symbols here denote that. So this is a crescendo, getting louder, and a diminuendo, getting quieter. It's easy to remember these using these symbols here, as the right side is bigger than the left side. So the music's getting bigger and louder, and then it's bigger on this side and smaller on this side, so it's getting smaller and quieter. It's literally like turning the volume up and turning it down again. Two of the most common forms of articulation are legato, which means smooth, and staccato, which means detached or bouncy. Legato is shown in notation as a curved line underneath the notes which you desire to be played in this way. And staccato is shown through the use of dots underneath the notes in which you desire to be played bouncy or detached. So I'll play you some examples using the bass of legato and staccato playing. So for the legato playing, I will use the song Wherever I Lay My Hat, That's My Home by Paul Young. So what I'll do first is play the song without it being legato, and then I'll play it with it being legato, and hopefully you'll notice the difference in how it sounds. So there, that's it not being legato. Now I will play it legato, and hopefully you'll notice that it's a bit smoother. So this technique tends to be used to add emotionality to a piece of music. So generally, it's softer, sadder songs that tend to use legato style playing, or songs that intend to feel, not quite as hyped up and be a bit more relaxing can use the technique. The opposite to that is staccato. And the example of that I'm going to use is a song by The Knack called My Sharona. Now, again, I will play it without the staccato technique first, and then I will play it with and sort of explain the difference afterwards. And now with staccato. So as you can see on the second one, it feels a little bit more lively. That's generally the purpose of staccato notes. It's to make the music sound more upbeat and sort of exciting. You'll find it's more common in quite a lot of dance music and funk music because, again, it's designed to be upbeat and dancey, especially in disco as well. So there are other forms of dynamics and articulation, and some of these are more instrument specific. So I'll start with this symbol here. This is an accent. It means that a note should be played with a little bit of extra force to just emphasize that note. So I'll highlight it here. If I was to just clap 4 times, all the claps sound very much the same, no emphasis on any clap. Now, if I'm to put a little bit of extra effort into the third clap, you should notice that it's a bit more emphasized, and that would be an accent. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's just a bit louder, and it means that there's emphasis on that beat. Again, it's another rhythmic technique that's written down in notation and is sort of crosses over a lot of bounds. As with music, everything sort of blends into one if you go far enough. So another symbol is this one here, which is short for sforzando. Now, sforzando is a term designed to give sudden emphasis. So if it's a really quiet piece of music and then out of nowhere there's a big bang on a chord, that's how you'd write it. Some of the more instrument-specific ones are these symbols here. Now, this symbol is double tonguing, and then this one is triple tonguing. They are wind instrument techniques that it's a sort of percussive style of playing by playing double the amount of notes within the bounds of one note just by blowing or using your mouth and tongue a different way. Another very similar one is this one here, which is flutter tonguing. Now, this is very common on the flute. It's very much like a rolling R sound, but you use it in notes. It can give an almost tremolo-like effect to a piece of music. Very useful in a lot of genres, so classical and jazz will use this technique. I'll show you some examples of it here when the videos load. There we go. So this video is going to show you an example of double tonguing. So that extra note is not being done by blowing again, it's by moving his tongue in a specific way to create that sound. And then flutter tonguing is done this way. There we go. So flutter tonguing, again, it's not done by taking lots of little breaths. It's done by rolling the tongue and rolling the mouth in order to create what sounds like a tremolo effect without having to make lots and lots of breaths. Again, it can be useful for a wide range of genres. So there are Italian words for the many different ways a piece could be articulated. So describes how it's going to be played. A lot of them are written here. Common ones that you will see quite a bit are words like andante, which means walking pace or fairly slow. Allegro, which means fast, and presto, which means very quick. These techniques just describe the speed and the sort of emphasis on how the music should be played. They're fairly broad in terms of who's to define what walking pace is, who's to define what lively is. However, it's a general sort of gist towards the performer so they know how to play it. More interesting ones are terms like rubato here. So rubato, rhythms are played freely for expressive effect. This gives the instrumentalist a lot of leeway in how they play a song, and they can, especially in songs that are emotional, change the style to fit their personal relation with the music, which is useful in a lot of situations. An example of how this would appear on a piece of sheet music is Prelude 2 by Goethe. So as you can see here, it says both andante and rubato. So what it means is the piece itself is generally meant to be played at walking pace. However, this is up for debate based on whether or not the musician feels it needs to go slightly faster than walking pace in parts and slightly slower than walking pace in parts. It's a good mixture of both terms in one piece of music. We can also look at some of the other examples of stuff we've learned today in this sheet music. So there's legato with the curve. There's piano with the little P symbol. There's the treble clef and the bass clef. So this is piano music, hence why there's both. And there's some sharps, and there's 4 sharps there, which determine the key signature. I hope you find this video today very useful. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below, and someone will get back to you and try and expand on the knowledge to help you with your learning. Please check out some of our other videos on other music theory topics, as they're all useful, and the other people in the group have worked very hard on them. Thank you very much.